The desert is silent. The wind moves across the golden sands of Egypt, and out of that silence rise three colossal giants that have stood for more than 4,500 years. The Great Pyramids of Giza for many, they are monuments. For others they are mysteries, but for those who have walked their shadows, they feel alive as if they still whisper the stories of kings in a world long vanished. This is not just the story of stone and sand. It is the story of human ambition, power, divine belief, and an enigma that still defies modern understanding. Long before skyscrapers and machines, when human civilization was still carving its place into the world, Egypt was already old. Along the banks of the Nile, life flourished in ways unseen anywhere else. The river was the heart of everything. It flooded with predictable rhythm, bringing fertile soil that turned the surrounding desert into an oasis of green. Here, one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world was born. They built cities, temples, and vast tombs meant to last forever, but nothing they built could match the Pyramids of Giza. The largest, the Great Pyramid, is believed to have been constructed for Pharaoh Khufu, also known as Cheops, around 2560 BCE. To put that in perspective, the Great Pyramid was already more than 2,000 years old when Julius Caesar set foot in Egypt. By the time Jesus was born, the stones of Giza had already stood in silence for centuries. And yet, they still stand today. No ancient structure has captured the world's imagination quite like these. Each block of limestone weighs several tons, and there are more than 2.3 million of them. Yet the entire structure was aligned with almost perfect precision, so precise that even modern engineers are astonished. How could people without cranes, without steel, without modern tools create something so perfect? This question has fascinated and frustrated historians, engineers, and dreamers alike. But to understand why they built it, you must step into their world. To the ancient Egyptians, the pharaoh was not just a king. He was a god on earth, a bridge between the mortal realm and the divine. Death was not an ending for them, but a passage. The pyramid was not just a tomb, it was a gateway to eternity. Every line of its design, every stone, was part of a larger belief, a cosmic map to guide the soul of the pharaoh into the afterlife. Khufu's reign was one of immense power. He commanded the full strength of Egypt's workforce, resources, and religious authority. Tens of thousands of workers were gathered from across the kingdom. Contrary to old myths, these were not slaves in chains. Most were skilled laborers, farmers working during the Nile's flood season when their fields were underwater. They were fed, housed, and given a task that was bigger than themselves to build something that would outlive them all. The construction was a marvel of organization. Quarries were cut nearby, blocks were hauled on wooden sledges, and ramps rose like giant stairways toward the heavens. Some ramps spiraled around the growing structure, others stretched far out into the desert. It was not brute force alone that raised these stones. It was planning, precision, and a deep understanding of geometry. And the alignment, that uncanny alignment with the cardinal points of the earth, shows they were more than builders. They were astronomers. The ancient Egyptians studied the stars not just for beauty but for meaning. To them, the stars were gods, guides for the afterlife. The Great Pyramid is oriented almost perfectly to true north, a feat so accurate that only modern technology can rival it. Its internal shafts point toward specific stars, believed to be gateways for the pharaoh's soul. The structure itself is a reflection of the heavens, a bridge between earth and sky. But what we see today is only a shadow of what once was. The pyramids were originally covered in smooth, white Tura limestone that reflected the sun's light so brilliantly they could be seen from miles away, shining like jewels in the desert. At their apex stood a golden capstone, catching the sun and turning it into a beacon. Imagine the sight thousands of years ago, three shining pyramids rising from the sands, glowing under the Egyptian sun like divine monuments. Around them was not emptiness but a bustling necropolis. Temples, smaller pyramids for queens, mastabas for nobles, and the mighty Sphinx standing guard. The Giza Plateau was a sacred landscape, designed to mirror the afterlife. It was both a city of the dead and a celebration of eternity. The Sphinx itself is another enigma. Its lion body and human head are said to represent strength and wisdom. Carved from a single massive block of limestone, it has endured centuries of wind, sand, and human hands. No inscription names its builder. Many believe it was built during Khufu's reign, Khufu's son, who built the second largest pyramid. Others believe it is older, perhaps far older. Its eroded surface has led some geologists to argue it dates back to a wetter, ancient Egypt, thousands of years before the first pharaohs. For the ancient Egyptians, death was not a tragedy but a journey. They prepared the dead with care, mummifying their bodies, surrounding them with food, treasures, and everything they might need beyond this world. The pyramid was the pharaoh's vessel to eternity. Inside its chambers lay not only the king's body but also intricate pathways, traps, and secret passages meant to protect him from robbers and guide his soul to the stars. But there's another layer to this story, a layer of mystery that refuses to fade. How exactly were these pyramids built with such precision? How did they transport stones weighing tons without wheels or iron tools? And how did they achieve an alignment that rivals modern technology? Some point to lost ancient knowledge, advanced techniques forgotten by time. Others lean toward more speculative theories that extraterrestrial visitors shared knowledge, or that a forgotten civilization far older than Egypt once walked this land. What's undeniable is that the Great Pyramid is not just a tomb, it's a riddle carved in stone. Its proportions contain mathematical relationships tied to the Earth's dimensions. Its placement aligns with the Orion constellation, believed to represent Osiris, god of the afterlife. To this day, debates rage among scholars and engineers and alternative historians over whether we truly understand what happened here 4,500 years ago. And yet, the most powerful part of this story may not be the mystery, but the certainty. A civilization with no electricity, no machines, no computers, built something so extraordinary it still stands as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Empires have risen and fallen, but the pyramids remain. They were more than monuments. They were statements of power, messages to eternity, symbols of a civilization that believed it could touch the stars. This was only the beginning, for buried beneath the sand, hidden behind ancient stones, lie stories, even more astonishing stories, of forgotten workers, of secret chambers, of robbers and explorers, and of the moment when the world first looked upon the pyramids not as divine, but as treasures to be plundered. The centuries rolled on like the slow current of the Nile, long after the builders of the pyramids had turned to dust and their stories faded into legend. The monuments remained, watching over an ever-changing Egypt. They had been built to last forever, and in a way, they had succeeded. But time does not pass without leaving its mark. The shining white limestone casing that once made the pyramids blaze like beacons in the sun slowly cracked, weathered, and was stripped away by centuries of earthquakes and human hands. What remains today is the raw, stepped skeleton of those once smooth faces, yet their power remains undiminished. Even in their worn state, they inspire awe. In the time of Khufu and his successors, the Giza Plateau was the center of royal power and belief. The people who lived in the shadow of the pyramids believed that their pharaoh was not truly gone when he died. They believed his Ka, his spirit, continued to live, guiding Egypt from beyond the veil. They left offerings at the temples beside the pyramids to keep the pharaoh strong in the afterlife. Priests recited hymns carved into stone, and families made pilgrimages to the sacred plateau. The pyramids were not abandoned relics then. They were living monuments, pulsing with ritual and reverence. After Khufu came his son Khafre, whose pyramid still stands proudly just beside his father's, slightly smaller but built on higher ground. It gives the illusion of being equal, even superior. Khafre was determined not to be overshadowed by his father's monument. He added his own legacy, the Great Sphinx. Its gaze, eternally fixed toward the east, watches the rising sun, symbol of rebirth and eternity. Its face, many believe, bears Khafre's own features. It was a statement of power, a divine guardian. The Sphinx temple that stood before it was part of a grand spiritual plan. The pharaoh would be reborn with the sun each morning. Then came Menkaure, whose pyramid is the smallest of the 3. It may be smaller, but it was built with exquisite craftsmanship. Granite casing stones at its base still show the precision of the builders. In Menkaure's time, the pyramid complex reached its peak of refinement, smaller but more sophisticated. Each king left his mark, and together they created a landscape unlike anything else on Earth, a place where stone, belief, and eternity were bound together. For centuries, the pyramids stood as both royal tombs and sacred places of pilgrimage. But slowly, Egypt changed. The old kingdom fell. Civil wars, drought, and political collapse shook the land. New dynasties rose far to the south, new centers of power emerged, and the pyramids, once at the heart of Egypt's glory, began to fade from daily life. The temples emptied, the priests dispersed, and the plateau grew quiet. But the pyramids still stood. The sands of the desert began to reclaim the plateau. Storm after storm, the wind covered the paths, buried the stones, and wrapped the monuments in silence. Travelers from distant lands who passed by could hardly imagine the bustling civilization that once surrounded these stones. Even the Sphinx was buried up to its neck in sand. Only its face watched the horizon. But the pyramids never truly disappeared. They lived on in memory. Egyptians of later periods saw them as sacred, mysterious, remnants of a divine age. When the Greeks arrived under Alexander the Great, they too were stunned by their scale. To them, the pyramids were already ancient beyond reckoning. The Greek historian Herodotus visited in the 5th century BCE and wrote stories of their construction. He imagined armies of workers, tens of thousands strong, laboring for decades. His account is one of the earliest surviving stories about the pyramids. Though he did not know the truth, his words fueled centuries of wonder. The Greeks gave Egypt a new chapter, and when the Romans followed, the pyramids became symbols of an even older world. Emperors and scholars visited Giza, awed by its age. Roman graffiti still marks the stones, carved by soldiers who stood where pharaohs once walked. Legends grew, some claiming the pyramids were granaries built by Joseph from the Bible, others insisting they were tombs of ancient giants. Each culture that encountered them left its own layer of myth. But it wasn't until the rise of Islam in Egypt that the pyramids took on a new role. For centuries, they stood as silent sentinels on Cairo's horizon. Medieval Arab scholars puzzled over their purpose. Some thought they held hidden libraries of lost knowledge. Others believed they were built by prophets or wise men from a forgotten age. Adventurers told tales of golden treasures hidden inside, guarded by traps and curses. In the 9th century, Caliph Alman ordered his men to break into the Great Pyramid, convinced they would find unimaginable riches. They hacked their way through the stones, carving the entrance that tourists still use today. What they found was not gold, but silence, empty passages, echoing chambers, and mysteries that had slept for thousands of years. By then, any treasures the pharaohs might have been buried with were long gone, taken by ancient robbers. The tombs had been plundered not centuries but millennia before. Even in the time of the New Kingdom, long after Khufu's death, tomb robbing was common. The priests of later dynasties knew the pyramids could not keep their secrets safe forever. That is why later pharaohs built their tombs hidden in the Valley of the Kings instead of grand pyramids. But even robbed of gold, the pyramids never lost their power. Alman's men may have broken their way in, but they emerged with something more valuable than treasure: the rebirth of the world's fascination. News spread through the Islamic world of the tunnels inside the pyramid, of its strange shafts, of its impossible scale. From that moment, the Great Pyramid was no longer just a ruin in the sand. It became a mystery to solve. Over the following centuries, explorers, scholars, and dreamers came from across the world. European travelers in the Middle Ages told stories of magical hieroglyphs, secret chambers, and giant statues hidden beneath the sands. Some saw the pyramids as proof of supernatural power. Others believed they were built by lost civilizations. They could not believe ordinary humans, thousands of years ago, could have built something so perfect. When Napoleon Bonaparte's army arrived in Egypt in 1798, the pyramids once again stepped into the spotlight. Napoleon was not just a general. He brought with him a team of scientists, engineers, and artists. They measured the pyramids, documented them in detail, and published their findings in Europe. Their work ignited a new wave of fascination with ancient Egypt, a wave that still rolls on today. Standing before the Great Pyramid, Napoleon is said to have whispered to his soldiers, "Soldiers, from the top of these pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you." It was a moment that reminded the world just how old and enduring these stones were. The pyramids had outlasted empires, kings, religions, and revolutions, and they were not done yet. In the 19th century, modern archaeology began to take shape. Adventurers became excavators, treasure hunters became scientists. Scholars like Flinders Petrie began measuring and documenting the pyramids with precision. Petrie's work revealed something astonishing. The builders of the pyramids were not primitive laborers but master engineers. The precision of the Great Pyramid's base, for example, is within mere millimeters. Its alignment with true north is so accurate that it remains one of the most precise constructions ever made. Modern instruments only confirmed what the ancients had achieved long ago. The Sphinx was uncovered again. Layers of sand that had buried it for centuries were cleared away. Its massive body, carved from a single stone, was revealed to the modern world in all its glory. Archaeologists began to piece together the story of Giza, connecting hieroglyphic inscriptions, ancient records, and the physical evidence left behind. But for every answer, new questions emerged. No one could fully explain how such massive stones were moved with Bronze Age technology. No one could explain how the alignment was achieved so precisely. And no one could say for sure why the pharaohs chose this exact site for their eternal resting place. Some theories point to religious significance. The plateau aligned with sacred stars. Others suggest the site was chosen for its stable bedrock and proximity to the Nile, which may have been used to float stones closer to the site before hauling them up ramps. But none of these fully erase the wonder. Even with modern technology, recreating the Great Pyramid today would be a monumental challenge. As the modern world grew around it, Cairo expanded. The ancient plateau, once isolated in the desert, now stands at the edge of a bustling city. But the pyramids still dominate the skyline. Tourists arrive from every corner of the globe. They stand where pharaohs once ruled, where priests once prayed, where conquerors once marveled. The wind still whistles across the stones. The same stars still shine above, and beneath the surface, unanswered questions remain. Whispers of secret chambers hidden deep within the pyramid persist. Scans using muon detectors have revealed anomalies, voids inside the Great Pyramid that have yet to be explored. What lies beyond those walls may change what we know about ancient Egypt forever, or perhaps, like so much else in Giza, it will lead only to more questions. Through war and peace, through empire and collapse, the pyramids have endured. The men who built them are gone, their names forgotten, their stories mostly lost, but the stones they placed remain, speaking without words. They speak of ambition, power, devotion, and a vision of eternity that still humbles us. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Pyramids of Giza had evolved from mysterious ruins on a forgotten plateau to the beating heart of global fascination. The ancient wonder that had mesmerized conquerors and poets now drew explorers, engineers, scientists, and dreamers. Egyptology was no longer the domain of travelers and fortune seekers. It became a science, precise, methodical, and determined to peel back the layers of history buried in stone. This new wave of exploration began with meticulous observation. Scholars crawled through the narrow corridors of the Great Pyramid, taking measurements with instruments far more advanced than the tools used by Napoleon's expedition. The more they studied, the more baffling the structure became. Its geometry was extraordinary. Its alignment with the cardinal points was nearly perfect. Its base was level 2 within fractions of an inch across an area large enough to fit several city blocks. To achieve that without modern equipment seemed almost unimaginable. The question that haunted every researcher was simple yet monumental. How had people more than 4,000 years ago, without cranes, steel, or electricity, built something so immense and so precise? Theories multiplied. Some believed they used straight or zigzagging ramps to drag the blocks upward. Others proposed circular ramps wrapping around the pyramid as it rose. Some even speculated that the stones were cast on site, poured like concrete. But no single theory explained everything perfectly. The mystery of construction remains one of the greatest puzzles of human history. The blocks themselves are astonishing. Many of them weigh between 2 and 15 tons. Some of the granite beams in the king's chamber weigh more than 70 tons. They were transported from Aswan more than 800 kilometers to the south. Moving them required ingenuity, resources, and planning on a scale rarely seen in the ancient world. Archaeological evidence reveals that the builders were not slaves, as popular myths once claimed. They were skilled workers, organized into teams, provided with food, housing, and medical care. Excavations of workers' villages near the pyramids uncovered bakeries, breweries, and evidence of a thriving, well-fed community. This changes the story entirely. The pyramids were not built through cruelty and chains, but through collective effort and extraordinary organization. They were built by Egyptians for their kings, as acts of devotion and belief. For them, building the pyramid was building eternity itself. As the 20th century progressed, technological advances gave archaeologists new tools. Aerial photography, introduced in the 1920s and 30s, revealed patterns invisible from the ground, hidden causeways, tombs, and foundations of long-buried structures. The Giza Plateau was far more complex than the 3 iconic pyramids. It was an entire sacred landscape: temples, boat pits, mastabas of nobles, and ceremonial roads that once connected it to the Nile. Then came the era of precise surveying. Laser scans, ground-penetrating radar, and computer models revealed things that had been hidden for millennia. Scientists discovered shafts and cavities deep within the Great Pyramid, some leading nowhere, some aligned perfectly with stars in the ancient sky. The precision of these alignments wasn't an accident. The ancient Egyptians saw the stars as gateways to the afterlife. Pharaohs were believed to ascend to the heavens to join the gods, particularly the circumpolar stars that never set. The pyramid's shafts were likely spiritual pathways for the king's soul to travel. This spiritual dimension is crucial. To modern eyes, the pyramids are architectural marvels, but to their builders they were sacred engines of immortality. Their shape, rising from a square base to a single point, mirrored the primordial mound from which the world was believed to have emerged at the dawn of time. It was both a tomb and a cosmic symbol, uniting earth and sky. In the mid-20th century, a remarkable discovery added another piece to the puzzle of Giza. In 1954, archaeologists uncovered a massive wooden boat buried in a pit beside the Great Pyramid. Known today as the Khufu ship, it was a fully preserved 43-meter-long vessel made of cedar wood. It had been dismantled and buried in pieces but was reassembled over years of careful work. Its craftsmanship was exquisite. Scholars believe it was a solar bark, a symbolic vessel meant to carry the Pharaoh's spirit with the sun god Ra across the sky in eternity. This discovery proved that the pyramid complex wasn't just a tomb, it was part of a larger, sophisticated spiritual architecture designed to ensure the pharaoh's resurrection. As exploration continued, new secrets emerged. Beneath the sand, teams unearthed storage chambers, workers' tools, and inscriptions left behind by those who built these colossal structures. Some of these inscriptions recorded the names of work crews, groups with names like the Drunkards of Menkaure and the Friends of Khufu, far from faceless slaves. These were proud teams who saw their labor as a sacred mission. Meanwhile, the modern world was changing around Giza. Cairo expanded rapidly, pressing ever closer to the plateau. The pyramids became a global tourist magnet, drawing millions each year. They became one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world and the only one still standing. To walk between those stones was to walk through time itself. In the latter half of the 20th century, fascination with the pyramids crossed from science into popular culture. Movies, novels, and television shows transformed them into symbols of ancient power, mystery, and sometimes supernatural forces. The idea of hidden chambers, lost treasures, or alien intervention took root in the public imagination. While most of these ideas were pure fiction, they reflected something deeper, the human instinct to fill mysteries with stories. Archaeologists, however, kept their focus on evidence. They uncovered the remains of ancient ramps and pathways used to transport stones. They found copper chisels, sledges, and marks left by ropes. Step by step, a clearer picture of the construction process emerged. But even with all this knowledge, the pyramid's perfection still stirs wonder. It was not just built with tools, it was built with vision. By the 1990s and 2000s, cutting-edge technology entered the picture. Ground-penetrating radar revealed voids and anomalies deep within the structure. Thermal imaging detected temperature differences on the pyramid's surface, hinting at hidden spaces behind the walls. In recent years, Moan tomography, a technique using cosmic rays to scan through stone, has revealed large unexplored voids inside the Great Pyramid. One of them, known as the Big Void, is roughly the size of an airplane. What lies inside remains unknown. No human has entered it in more than 4,500 years, if ever. These discoveries have reignited the world's fascination. Could these voids be secret chambers, perhaps the lost burial chamber of Khufu himself, still untouched? Or are they structural spaces, built to relieve weight and preserve the monument's stability? The debate continues. What's clear is that the pyramid still guards secrets. The pyramids are also revealing a new story about their environment. Satellite imagery and geological studies show that the Nile once flowed much closer to the plateau than it does today. A now vanished branch of the river likely allowed massive limestone and granite blocks to be floated almost to the foot of the construction site. This insight has transformed our understanding of logistics in ancient Egypt. Rather than dragging stones across miles of desert, builders may have transported them on boats, an elegant, efficient solution, hidden for millennia. Modern conservationists face their own challenges. The sheer number of visitors, pollution from the city, and natural weathering threaten the site's preservation. Efforts are underway to protect the plateau without shutting it off from the world. Strict conservation zones, digital mapping, and high-resolution 3D scans are being used to document every inch of the monuments, ensuring they can be studied even if time erodes them further. But the story of Giza is not just about stone and science. It is about how a structure can outlive the civilization that built it, how a monument can transcend time, religion, language, and empire to speak to everyone. The pyramids stand not as relics of a forgotten age, but as living witnesses to human ambition. And still, the mysteries remain. Why was Khufu's burial chamber placed at that exact height? What was the true purpose of the Grand Gallery, with its soaring, perfectly balanced roof? Why were the builders so obsessed with cardinal alignments and star positions? Every question answered seems to open to more. It is as if the pyramids were designed not only to endure but to challenge every generation that encounters them. For the engineers of the modern age, the pyramids are more than archaeological wonders. They are engineering case studies. Their foundation has barely shifted in 45 centuries. Their geometry is so exact that modern skyscrapers can only hope to match their endurance. What's remarkable is not only the technology that built them, but the mindset that imagined them. A civilization willing to devote decades of labor and unimaginable resources to build a monument to eternity is something that still astonishes the modern world. And so, as the sun sets over the Giza plateau, the stones seem to glow with their own light. The Great Pyramid casts a long shadow over the desert, as it has done for millennia. The wind moves softly between its ancient blocks. Cairo hums in the distance. The past and the present meet in that golden light, where modern curiosity stands face to face with ancient ambition. The pyramid does not speak, it does not move, but it holds everything: the triumphs, the secrets, the dreams, in silence. Today, when the first rays of sunlight sweep across the golden sands of Giza, they strike the peak of the Great Pyramid just as they have for over 4,500 years. It is a daily reminder that this monument has seen more human history than any living thing. Empires have risen and fallen in its shadow. Languages have been born, evolved, and disappeared. Religions have spread and kingdoms have crumbled. Yet the pyramids of Giza still stand unchanged, eternal, watching silently as the world transforms around them. The pyramids are no longer just monuments of Egypt. They are monuments of humanity. No other structure on earth so perfectly blends mystery, mathematics, spirituality, and power. The Greeks who visited Giza 2,000 years ago believed the pyramids were the work of gods. Roman generals marched past them in awe. Napoleon's troops, upon arriving at the site, were said to have stood frozen, overwhelmed by their scale. And today, tourists from every corner of the planet gather here for the same reason, to witness something that seems to defy time itself. But beyond the fascination of travelers, the pyramids have become a mirror, reflecting humanity's endless quest to understand its own past. They challenge us to ask not just how they were built, but why. What drives a civilization to build something so vast, so perfect, that it outlives the people who made it? For the ancient Egyptians, the answer lay in their unshakable belief in eternity. Death was not the end. It was the beginning of a journey. And the pyramid was the vessel that carried the soul of the king into the afterlife. When Khufu ordered the construction of his pyramid, he was not building a tomb. He was building a machine for immortality, a sacred structure aligned to the stars, anchored to the earth, and designed to last forever. It was an act of faith so absolute that even after 4 millennia, the pyramid still fulfills its purpose, to make people remember. Every time a visitor stands before those limestone blocks, they are, in a way, keeping Khufu's name alive. This enduring power has drawn people not only to study the pyramids but to reinterpret them. In the 19th century, they became a symbol of Western fascination with the East, a mystical emblem of a time when the world was still full of secrets. In the 20th century, they became icons of scientific curiosity as explorers tried to decode their geometry and engineering. In the 21st century, they have become part of the digital age, scanned, mapped, and reconstructed in virtual reality, accessible to anyone with an internet connection. And yet, even with all our technology, the pyramids have managed to keep their silence. We know so much more about them now than we did a century ago. We understand their construction techniques better. We've uncovered the lives of the workers, the tools they used, the way they organized their labor. We've mapped the shafts, scanned the chambers, traced the old Nile channels. And still there is something intangible about the pyramids, something that refuses to be fully explained. It is that thin line between fact and wonder that keeps the world coming back to them. Part of the mystery lies in what we still haven't found. The burial chamber of Khufu remains a puzzle. The chamber that exists inside the pyramid seems strangely modest compared to the monument's grandeur. Some archaeologists believe the king's true resting place may still be hidden in one of the unexplored voids deep inside the structure. Others think it was looted long ago. The absence of definitive answers feeds the myth. Every unanswered question becomes a spark for imagination, turning stone into story. Over time, countless myths have grown around the pyramids. Some believe they are encoded with ancient knowledge, mathematics, astronomy, even prophecies. Others think they are markers of lost civilizations or landing points for beings not of this earth. These theories, while lacking evidence, reveal something profound about human nature. When faced with greatness we cannot fully explain, we invent stories to bridge the gap between reason and awe. The pyramids don't just belong to history, they belong to legend. But their real story is perhaps even more astonishing than any legend. These structures represent a civilization that mastered logistics, mathematics, and architecture to a degree unmatched in its time. A civilization that organized tens of thousands of workers, fed and housed them, and built something so precise that even modern engineers still marvel at its perfection. It was not aliens or forgotten magic, it was human will, human belief, and human genius. In recent years, Egypt has renewed its efforts to protect and preserve the Giza Plateau. Conservationists and scientists are racing against time, battling erosion, pollution, and urban encroachment. The pyramids have stood for thousands of years, but they are not invincible. Wind and sand have worn down their smooth casing stones. The original white limestone gleam that once reflected the sun is mostly gone. The Great Pyramid once shone so brightly it could be seen from miles away, like a beacon of eternity. Now, only fragments of that surface remain, clinging to the edges of history. This is why preserving the pyramids isn't just an Egyptian responsibility, it's a global one. These monuments are part of our shared human heritage. They belong to every person who has ever looked up at the stars and wondered where we came from. Their story is a reminder of what we are capable of, not just as individuals, but as civilizations. The site itself is changing. As technology advances, Egypt is using digital preservation techniques, high-resolution scans, 3D mapping, and virtual tours to document every inch of the plateau. This ensures that even if parts of the pyramids are lost to time, their exact form will survive forever in digital archives. For the first time in history, anyone on Earth can step inside Khufu's pyramid without ever setting foot in Egypt. The digital age has made eternity accessible, but standing in front of the real thing is a different experience. The sheer scale overwhelms you. The base covers 13 acres, the original height reached nearly 147 meters. Even with millions of visitors over the centuries, the blocks still tower above everything else, unmoved. It is not just a structure, it is an encounter with time itself. It forces you to feel your place in history, small, brief, but part of the same human story. The pyramids have also inspired countless modern creations. Architects have studied their geometry to design stable structures. Artists have used their silhouette to evoke mystery and power. Writers and filmmakers have woven them into myths and adventures. Every era reinvents the pyramids in its own image, and yet, the stones never change. They outlast interpretation. For Egypt, they are a source of national pride, identity, and tourism. For the world, they are proof that humanity is capable of greatness that transcends centuries. In a world where so much is fleeting, the pyramids are permanence itself. And still, questions remain. Did the builders fully understand the impact their work would have thousands of years later? Did Khufu imagine that one day people from lands beyond his wildest dreams would stand at the foot of his tomb and whisper his name? Probably not. But that is the strange magic of monuments. They outlive their creators, carrying their legacy forward in ways no one can predict. As we move further into the future, the pyramids will continue to stand. New technologies will reveal more secrets. Archaeologists may one day find the hidden chamber, or perhaps some mysteries will never be solved, and that's what keeps them alive in our collective imagination. Their silence is their power, their endurance is their message. As the evening sun dips below the horizon, the golden light fades to deep amber, and the pyramids cast long shadows over the sands. The air grows cooler, and the desert grows quiet. It is in this moment between day and night that the weight of their age is most tangible. They have stood through storms, wars, revolutions, and renaissances. They have watched human history unfold like a slow, endless river. They do not speak. They do not reveal their secrets easily, but they don't have to. Their very presence is a message carved in stone. A reminder that even in a world of constant change, some things are built to last forever. The Pyramids of Giza are not just the legacy of a pharaoh or a nation. They are the legacy of humanity itself, a bridge between the ancient and the modern, the living and the dead, the known and the mysterious. And long after we are gone, long after our cities have turned to dust, they will still be here, facing the rising sun, as they always have.